They walk in that room, they become yours. And you got this energy inside your soul that says, I am the number one determinant of the success or failure of my students. Hey, y'all, when you get back, kick some butt. I'll see you in the winner's circle celebrating your victory. Let's go. 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 Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's go. Let's go. Thank you, everybody.
And we are live. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to week 257 of the AP and New Principles Academy. Let me see who we got checking in this morning. We got topping us off Constance Sherrod out of Pearl, Mississippi. Mona Obermolak is in Orlando, Florida. Michael Benton, Cincinnati, Ohio. Dr. Rachel Edeweckett is in Maryland. Where we at? Dr. Rella Hicks is in Augusta, Georgia. Grace Castaneda's back in Kyle, Texas. We got Nadira Coley is in Newark, New Jersey, right across the border here from where I am in Jersey City. She's in Newark, New Jersey. Takesha High is in Virginia. Dr. Sonia Matthew is in Waldorf, Maryland. If you missed my conversation with her and two others, scroll back on the YouTube channel about maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and you'll see a phenomenal discussion with assistant principals. Leslie Akintunde is in the building. Napoleonville, I never heard of that, in Louisiana. Robin Snowden, Harambe out in California, Fresno. I see you. Good to see you. Yolanda Kinney is in Texas. Yolanda McKinney is in Texas. We got Ricardo Yanis is in the building out there in Houston. We got Fatima Nelson. Good to see you in Pennsylvania. We got Marsha Poe in San Diego. AP Patrick Lawrence is in Connecticut. Lysandra Brackens, North Carolina. LaKenya Rowland is in the building right here in Jersey. Arlette Johnson, AP, Assistant Principal of the Year out in Connecticut back in 2023. She'll be coming back on later in the year as well. Stacy Joy is in the building out in LA. Good to see you. Good to see you. Otis Kitchen, the principal Otis Kitchen II is in the building. MPA Jaguars. That's my man, my brother, Josh Tovar. Got to hang out with him earlier this week in Charlotte, North Carolina, at the North Carolina Middle Level Educators Conference. John Hurix is in the building. Saw him on PDP podcast recently. Go check that out on the NPA Jaguars Facebook page. Principal Tammy Taylor, one half of Create and Educate. That's Dr. Principal Tammy Taylor, doing big things. They come on at 10:30 every Saturday morning. Facebook Live, preceded by Sean Hurt, 10 o'clock. Make sure that you're checking them both out. And then PDP podcasts on Sundays at 7 o'clock. And these are all Eastern. These are all Facebook Live. Where we at? Dot McKeever Jeter, retired principal Dot McKeever Jeter, Calumet City, Illinois is in the building. Where we at? Labata Taylor is in the building. NPR got that. David Bell, I see you. Benton Harbor's in the building. Shayla Coley Benson's in the building. My wife, the queen of the castle, is in the building. Where we at? Jasmine Harris. She's going to be on with us in September. We finally got that nailed down. She's in the building out in California. There's Sean Hurt again, 10 o'clock. I got something to say about Sean. We got it coming up in my notes here. I'll get back to it. So that's coming up. Jacqueline Harriet's in Nova Scotia, Canada, in the building. Where we at? I'm getting ready to close it out so we can get started. We got a lot to talk about today. We got September Devon Vance, Daniels, Dr. Goffney. If you can hear me, give me a thumbs up. Thank you. All right, we good. Let me see. Stacy Joseph, Houston, Texas. I see you. Kenyelle Williams, we nailed her down. We got a date, man. Matter of fact, I got Kenyelle and Jasmine Harris coming on at the same time. I can't wait for that, but that's later in the year, y'all. We'll talk about that later. I'm getting ready to close it out. Kimberly O'Donohue, I see you. Tracy Gray, I see you. I'm getting ready to close it. Janetta Miller, by saying to everybody formally now, good morning. Greetings. Welcome to week 257 of the AP and New Principles Academy. Y'all hear that? 257. Now, when I say that, I'm saying consecutively, right? We ain't saying like random 257. I have not missed a Saturday on this platform since May of 2020, right? We coming up on an anniversary. The first Saturday in May. But I got to ask you that question that I ask you every Saturday, man, and I'm going to keep doing it. And that question is, you know it. Those of you who are fans of this platform, you already know the question. How you feeling? How you doing? I got to tell you, you know, and I keep saying to y'all, I just don't want to get political on here, super political. Education is political, so it's a political platform because education is political. But you understand what I mean. But I mean, every Saturday when I'm on here, a lot of mess has happened in the previous week, man. You know, it's just stuff. I posted about the National Museum of African American History in DC, and the guy wants to stop funding for that. It's like it just doesn't stop, right? So, you know, but as I keep saying, you gotta put it in perspective. Because at the end of the day, this is a leadership platform. This is an assistant principal, new principal, veteran principal, superintendent, assistant superintendent, commissioner of education, secretary. It's for every teacher, parent, it's counselor, it's for everybody. I just call it AP and new principal because that's the core audience, but it's for anybody, right? So I'm saying that to say this, we put it in perspective, but never lose, and not just that, just life. We put it in perspective, but then we do what we got to do, right? Life ain't gonna get in the way that we don't do what we do, you know, because all of us, I would think that being in these leadership roles, it was some kind of dream, you know, like at some point it was just your imagination, and now here you are in it. So we're not gonna let life get in the way of you being phenomenal at what you do, right? Enough said. Let me go through these announcements in my monologue, and then we're gonna get to it. I'm gonna keep saying it, y'all. Continue thoughts and prayers to all the victims, the people who were impacted by the wildfires in California. I know it seems like it was a long time ago, but guess what? Them houses are still gone, right? So I know that there were people who are fam of this platform who lost their homes, right? So I want to continue to say that for a while. So continue thoughts and prayers to them and anybody else going through whatever hardships you may be going through. Nardos King, if you hear me, just give me a thumbs up. All right, appreciate you. Shout out to First Schenectady City Schools, my principal mentees that I work with, man. I hope you guys are on right now, and if not, then you see the video later. But shout out to Schenectady for me having that partnership with the district and working one-to-one with a few principals out there. Shout out to North Carolina Middle Level Educators Conference this past week. Had a great time. I always do. Just shout out to David James who organizes that, and just a great conference. If you weren't there this year, then come on, join us next year. I'll be down there. Right. Shout out to Alexandria City Public Schools Aspiring Leaders Academy. I'm down there. Like, I got a nice little contract with them, and we're in a room all day with folks who aspire to become school leaders, and it's just a beautiful thing being in the room, hearing from them, hearing their feedback. You know, when I look at them, when I look into their eyes, we're literally in the room for like 8:30 to 4, right? And I'm looking into their eyes, and I'm like saying to myself, I was once you, man. They hungry, man. I'm looking at them like young lions sitting in the room and wanting it, you know, and they got their own thoughts and views and values and beliefs and all that kind of thing. And I'm looking. See, they don't even know if they're on right now. I hope they're all on right now. But I'm looking in their eyes, and I'm like, man, look at them young lions, man. Because I was there, man. I'm sitting in them chairs when I was on the come up. Hungry, want to get in that position. So I can relate to that when I'm in a room with them young lions who want to get into that principal seat or who want to get into that assistant principal seat. So shout out to Alexandria schools, city schools, for seeing it not robbery to bring your brother from Jersey City, New Jersey, to come in and be a part of the development of the next generation of school leaders. Good stuff. Good stuff. Welcome to the first timers. Glad you're here. But if this is your first time, that means you have missed 256 weeks of this, 256 sessions, which average 2 hours. The guests we've had on, everybody to somebody, right? And then we bring on folks who are somebody in their schools, but may not be known outside of the walls of their schools, but doing phenomenal work. So we don't limit it. We bring on whomever, right? Because this is just a labor of love. It's a passion. I get paid not a dime for it, but I'm here 257 consecutive Saturdays. I plan for 3 to 4 days a week of putting together an agenda to have a quality, not show, because we're not a show, but a quality session, a quality class. People come to me all the time. Principal Faley, when you going to let me on your show? Oh, last time I checked, I didn't have a show. I don't have a show. I have an academy. I just can't give grades. I just can't give assignments. But people come up to me all over the U.S. Man, ain't no graduate program, Kafele, got nothing on what you doing. I say, yeah, I know, because I bring on the best, baby. I bring on the best, right? Including today. Oh my God, right? I can't wait to bring them up, but I got to do my thing first, y'all. So hold tight. School Leadership Institute with Principal Kafele, July 15 and 16 in Raleigh, North Carolina. I announce it every week. Register. Go to principalkafele.com. Scroll down to where it says School Leadership Institute. In fact, this year it says Instructional Leadership Institute, because that's all we're going to talk about this summer. Instructional Leadership Institute, July 15, 16 in Raleigh. Click the link on the homepage. It'll take you to Eventbrite. Join me for 2 days in Raleigh. We just talking instructional leadership. By the time we finish at the end of the day on July 16th, you're going to be better than you were when you entered on July 15th. I promise that, right? So make sure that you register, join me. And guess what you get when you come? Y'all know the regulars, but look at my new joint, man. What is my value instructionally to the teachers I supervise, man? What is my value instructionally to the teachers I supervise? You get a free copy. So if you're sitting there saying, but I already paid for a copy, then you give it to somebody that could benefit. You're an administrator. You making good money, right? So the 32 you paid for it, you give it to somebody else, right? But you get a free copy. Make sure that you register. And those of you who are not going to be able to make it, still get your copy. Like get it right now, get it out the way. Get your other device, go to Amazon or go to ASCD, order your copy, get it out the way. Thank me later, right? There are folks telling me, man, like this is the game changer for them. People telling me all over the country, man, you have changed my whole outlook on instructional leadership through this book. I wrote it in plain English. It's easy to read. It's easy to understand, but it packs a big punch, man, a big jab, because like people tell me, and that was my intent. Folks tell me I feel very uncomfortable when I read this book. Yeah, it was meant for you to feel uncomfortable, because if you comfortable in some if you're comfortable in some uncomfortable practices, then you need to feel uncomfortable. So that's what it's about. Get yourself a copy. Appreciate you in advance. Let me say this before I go to my monologue and then bring up my guests. Sean Hurt, that comes on every Saturday at 10 o'clock. That's my brother in this work, my young brother in this work, right? He's been talking testing strategies every Saturday, right? Just he talks data every Saturday of the existence of the platform, but here he's giving that final push because all of y'all getting ready to go into testing. So you want to make sure that you don't just tune in for this platform. Those of you who are with all of us, then you already know. But anybody that just comes on for mine, no, start at 10 Eastern. So that might be early for some of y'all, like 7 on the West Coast. But start at 10 with Sean, because Sean's giving you the game. We're all giving you the game and within our lanes. He's giving you the game. He's giving you the game to make sure that your students walk into that testing environment ready to excel. So if you don't watch live, you can watch the video's always there. He has a YouTube channel. We all do. So I think it's Sean Hurt. That's what it's called. Sean Hurt. Go to YouTube and you can see all his videos, right? And then so that's that. And since I'm talking YouTube, make sure that you visit mine at AP and New Principles Academy. We got 23,400 subscribers. That's a lot of people, but it's over 300,000 administrators in America. So we got a long way to go. But I ain't gonna sneeze at the 23,000. 23,400 subscribers to this channel. That's nothing to sneeze at, man. I'm happy about that. I'm pleased. I feel blessed by it. Right. I got to tell you about about a young man, 10 years old. One of our fam that's on right now, Principal Kenyell Williams out in OKC, Oklahoma City. Her son, I found out, somebody wrote me this morning. Well, my guy, Onay Chapman from Mississippi, he wrote me this morning, sent me a picture of this young man with him, Josiah Williams. He said, Josiah Williams is your youngest fan. That's what he said. He said, Josiah, he's 10 years old, watches the AP and New Principles Academy. Man, are you kidding me? Right? 10 years old, watches the AP and New Principles Academy. My man Onay said he wanted Onay to call me one Saturday so he could talk to me, but it was right before I was going on, but so he didn't want to call me and you know, right before I was getting ready to go live. But shout out to Josiah, because I know he's on right now. Shout out to Josiah Williams. Hey, Josiah, let me holler at you real quick, man. Hey, Josiah, I know you're doing big things. I know you're doing big things. And I want you to continue to do big things. I want you to continue to set goals. I want you to continue to walk into your school with a sense of purpose. I want you to continue to walk into your school feeling a sense of mission to be the best version of yourself. I want you to walk into your school with a vision of excellence, not just being locked into today, but seeing yourself 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, seeing yourself living your dream. And your dream may not be the dream you have today, may not be the dream you have next year this time, right? Or even next month this time. But whatever your dream is in real time, strive to live it, right? The epitome of happiness in life, in my strongest opinion, is the ability to have a dream and then to live your dream, as opposed to having a dream and then watching someone else walking in your dream. So lock it in and then put forth a plan. Even at your young year, your young tender age of 10, write your goals, write your plan. And then now that I know about you, stay connected to Principal Kafele. That's important. Stay connected to me. I'm your guy. Right? Stay connected to me. Right? That's 10 years old, y'all. 10 years old watching the AP and New Principles Academy. Ooh. All right. Hey, y'all, I got a monologue I got to do right quick. I'm going to keep it short. I say that every week, but I promise y'all, keep it short, man. It's called, so my monologue today is called, What is the Experience of Being a Student Under My Leadership? When I say my, I'm talking about you. So what is the experience of being a student under your leadership? But what I want you to do as I go through this for just a couple of minutes, I want you to own it. So let me say it the way I want you to receive it. What is the experience of being a student under my leadership? What's the experience? I want you to think about something. You go to a restaurant. I know I used this analogy recently, but it was in a different context. And let's put the food to the side for a minute. You go to a restaurant and the waitress or the waiter know how to treat you the whole time. From the time you sit down to the time you leave, they know when to come to your table to check on you in intervals. They know when, not to have you wait like all day and then like you have an appetizer, right? And then 30 minutes later, here comes the meal. See, they not rolling like that, right? They putting pressure on the cook. Look, I'm working for this tip. I need this food to be ready in X number of minutes so I can bring the food out or the appetizer, however it works. They come to you, they smile at you, and they treat you well. They make you feel special. When you leave out of there, it's like, man, that was a good experience. You'll go back. I was at a restaurant, and I'm not going to say the name since I'm recording, but I was in a restaurant in we'll say New York State. I won't even name the city, right? Because I don't want to bring disgrace to the politics there. But in New York State, not the city, but in the state. And as I'm sitting there, this is like 2 weeks ago, a mouse ran by my foot. Right, this is a very well-known national chain. Man, let me tell y'all something. I'm not going to get into particulars because I want to keep this short, but I'm going to tell you this. Every time I pass that chain, I cringe now. I've seen mouse. I mean, mice. I mean, you know, I'm an urban guy. I know what it is to have a mouse in the house. I know what that is, but I don't know what it is to be eating my dinner in a restaurant and one walks by my foot. That was the first time. So that nullified the experience. And now I don't want to go into any of them in all 50 states. Now it was just the one, but just the name of that chain is like, hey, I ain't messing with them no more. That thing shocked me, man. Man, you eating your steak and you look down. Whoa. Right. So I'm like, I'm done with that. So the experience was altered. That's my point. So now let's go. What's the experience of being your student under your leadership? Here's what I'm talking about. Let's look at a small list of things. The hallway aesthetic. What is that? I go into schools and the walls are bland, man. It's like nothing, man. I want to go into a place and it's like a museum. It's beautiful. That's how I laid mine out. It's just beautiful. The aesthetic when you walk in. I'm not even talking about the substance yet. Just the aesthetic when you walk in up the hallways. You walk into the classroom. The aesthetic. There's something special. It's just so much life when you walk into that classroom. I'm not even talking about the people. I'm just talking about the room itself, the four walls, the ceiling, the floor. Right? The cleanliness of that building, the cleanliness of that classroom. Ooh, that matters. In other words, what I'm talking about is, I call these my 4 intentionalities. The intentionality of what you see, the intentionality of what you hear, the intentionality of what you feel, and the intentionality of what you experience. So first, I'm talking about the intentionality of what you see, right? So what do you see when you walk into that building? The aesthetics of the hallway, the aesthetics of the classroom, the cleanliness of the school, the photos, the pictures. What do you see? What do you see that reflects you, the student, right? Man, what a beautiful thing. You walk into a school, you walk into a classroom, and there's photographs of the babies. Not just all this commercial stuff, but photographs of the children that we serve to give a sense of ownership. Like, oh, this is my school. I go here. I attend here. There's my picture right on the wall. There's my picture right in the classroom, right? So photos, awards, leaders, teachers, staff coming up with all sorts of categories to recognize young people, to award young people. It doesn't have to be the traditional student of the month, the traditional honor roll. It could be just use your kaumba. That's creativity with Kwanzaa, your imagination to come up with all these different categories to recognize children, and particularly children who've never been recognized beyond discipline, right? So how are you recognizing them? With awards? Cultural relevance. So photo posters on the wall of people who look like them, so that the world doesn't look one way, but we see the multiplicity of people. So cultural relevance of the imagery that you see within that building. Again, we're talking about the intentionality of what they see, being very intentional about what children see in their own school. But here's the big one: what they see in their teacher. Ooh. What's that teacher look like? What's that teacher's posture? What's that teacher's attire? What's that teacher's facial expression? What's that teacher's body language, man? All that matters. What I see in my teacher, it speaks volumes. But most importantly, what do I see in you, the leader? Imagine I don't see greatness in you because you're not exhibiting it. What do I see? I'm saying to you all, you got to be intentional about what students see. Number 2, the intentionality of what students hear. What kind of messaging are you delivering to students regularly? Principal, are you on your PA system or morning convocation talking to your school every morning before instruction begins? Or do students just walk into the classroom and now instruction begins from the teacher, but we never heard from the leadership? There's got to be intentionality behind what students hear every day. Is it positive? Is it uplifting? What kind of environment have we created for young people? And I'm going quick. Number 3, the intentionality of what they feel. What kind of emotion is evoked as a result of being a student in your school? Do I feel good? Do I feel special? Do I feel welcome? Do I feel like I belong? Do I feel like I'm somebody? Do I feel like I'm valued? Right? Do I feel like I'm seen? Do I feel like I'm heard? The intentionality of what students feel. You can't expect me to achieve at high levels if I feel bad in that school. I got to feel good. And as leaders, that leadership's got to lead the effort. You're not doing all the work, but you're leading the effort toward increasing the probability that young people feel good about themselves when they're in your environment. And lastly, the intentionality of the experience. So the overall, the macro, the big picture, what is the experience of being a student in your school? Is it magical? Is it memorable? Is it something that when I look back on it 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, that I will conclude that that experience was a phenomenal experience, and I'm the man, I'm the woman I am today because of the experience that I had in principal so-and-so's school. That matters. So I'm closing out by saying to all of us, we've got to be intentional about what our students see, hear, feel, and experience each and every day. Enough said. I got guests, y'all. I got big time guests too. So I'm getting ready to bring them up here. And here we go. I got two good doctors, two strong doctors, two women leaders doing big things. I got the current president of the National Alliance of Black School Educators, Dr. LaTonya Goffney. I got the immediate past president of the National Alliance of Black School Educators, Dr. Nardos E. King, in the building. Hey, y'all, good morning to you.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning. I'm glad to see you. Glad to see you. Let me share your bios, because you, even though that's just being president is a big deal, y'all do more than that. Let me go with Dr. Nardos King first. Y'all sent me the short versions too. I know that's what I asked for, but here's the thing. I got to share this because the fam this regulars on here, they can relate to this. I ask all guests to send the short version, but I would say 50% of my guests will send me the version that's like a page and a half long, right? So y'all truly sent me the short version. I got both your bios on one page. That's a new world record, right? So let me read this. Dr. Nardos King is an accomplished educator, educational leader with extensive experience at both the school and district levels. She currently serves as the Chief Equity Officer for Fairfax County Public Schools, Virginia's largest school district, providing strategic leadership on equity, anti-racism, and inclusive. Dr. King dedicated 14 years as a school-based administrator, 5 years as an assistant principal, and 9 years as a principal, driving initiatives that significantly improved student achievement, reduced suspensions, and promoted school-wide literacy. A committed advocate for educational equity, Dr. King also serves as the immediate past president of the National Alliance of Black School Educators, NABSE, an organization I've been a member of since the 90s. Dr. LaTonya M. Goffney began her career as an 8th grade teacher. She served as superintendent for Cold Spring, Oakhurst, CISD, and Lufkin ISD before becoming superintendent in Aldine ISD. Dr. Goffney was the first African-American to serve as superintendent in all 3 districts. Y'all probably saw her on the phone. I mean, she got like 80 some odd schools under her leadership. So she always working, man. It's I can't imagine leading that many schools. She was named Texas Superintendent of the Year in 2018. And in 2019, SHSU presented her with the Distinguished Alumni Award. In 2024, District Administration listed her as one of the 100 most influential educators in the nation. The Houston Chronicle included Dr. Goffney among the 37 most fascinating, controversial, and notorious Houstonians of 2024. We're gonna dive into that one today. In 2023, she became the first African-American female to serve as president of is that Texas Association of School Administrators? Is that what TASA stands for?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. Dr. Goffney is currently the president of NABSE, and serves on the executive committee of AASA. I guess that's the Administrators School Association, something like that. And she holds her bachelor's, master's, and doctorate. What's SHSU? I don't want to mess that up.
Sam Houston State University.
Yeah, Sam Houston, of course. Sam Houston State University. Her husband, Joseph, is an educator and pastor. The Goffneys have 2 children, Jocelyn and the late Joseph Jr., who passed away in 2019. And I'm very sorry to hear that. When I read this, it took me down a minute when I read it earlier in the week. But I'm sorry to hear that because that's still recent. Before I get to my first question, y'all, I'm just glad to have you on. Thank you for being here. To the fam out there, do me a favor, as always, hit the share button, hit the retweet button, hit the repost button, tag somebody, text somebody, call somebody, hit them Facebook leadership groups up and let them know that we are here. Just tag them as well. And then finally, hit the like button. Hit it a lot of times. If you don't like it, just like it anyway, right? So hit the like button, right? We live in an algorithm-driven world. So the like button activates algorithms. So just let folks know that we are here, we're live, and we're ready to go. Dr. King, let me start with you. You are the Fairfax County Public Schools Chief Equity Officer. Whether we get into the weeds of equity, I'm gonna leave that to you. That's not gonna be my call. But here's the thing. With equity, as you know, there are a zillion, I'll put quote unquote zillion different definitions and interpretations of what equity is, right? I haven't come, I don't think that universal book that everybody's go to, like with growth mindset, everybody would go to Carol Dweck's work for understanding of what growth mindset meant. But for equity, you can read just a plethora of different people and be confused because you don't know which way to go. So therefore, my question to you is, what is equity according to Dr. Nardos King? And particularly in today's climate, how do we ensure that equity is an inherent part of the learning process for children? So that's a two-parter. What is equity according to you, and how do we ensure that it's inherent in the learning process for young people?
Well, thank you, Baruti. I'm super excited to be here today, especially with my sister in NABSE and my good friend, Dr. Goffney. Equity it's a very simple concept, right? It means that we remove barriers so that all students have access and opportunity to reach their goals and dreams. It's that simple. And when I say all students, I mean all students. And so if there are barriers that are keeping students from reaching access and opportunity to, high rigorous courses in your systems, programs that underserved kids might not have access to, it's our duty as administrators to make sure that we remove those barriers to ensure that.
Yeah.
That's simple.
Let me stay with you, since we've got so many leaders on here and so many folks who are not even in leadership yet. They're aspiring or assistant principals. You said ensuring that we remove barriers, right? Give us an example of what that looks like.
So there are schools that have programming that students might not attend that school, but we're a large district, right? We have 200 schools in our district. And ensuring that when we're putting programming in place for students, that all of our students have access to that programming regardless of their zip code. So sometimes you have voices in some zip codes that will speak up to ensure that students have access and opportunity to high quality programming. And it's particularly my job, to make sure that, I'm at the table, that when we introduce new programming or have existing programming, that students in all of our zip codes have access to that. So the barriers might be putting programming in certain schools, or having transportation available for students to get to that programming. Making sure that our funding supports students so that those barriers are gone, to reduce the opportunity of students to have, I keep saying access and opportunity because some people think equity is black and brown, right? Equity is ensuring that our students with special needs have the equipment, have the curriculum access that they need to meet their goals and dreams. Every parent has goals and dreams for their students. And, part of our equity work is to ensure that all of our students have access to that. So the barriers are sometimes systematic. They've been in place for a long time in a district. When you see where your advanced academic programming is placed in your school system, it's our goal to study that and ensure that access to those same level of classes are provided to all of our students around our district.
Love it. It's I'm glad you said that equity is you didn't word it this way, but this is what you said. It's not confined to race, right? It's so much more than race. But it doesn't mean we can't have the race conversation, right? But it's not a racial word in and of itself. But before I go to Dr. Goffney, I want to touch on something that relates to race. Talk to us about would you consider this part of the equity conversation when we talk about curriculum that ensures that children have opportunity to see themselves in the learning, racially, culturally speaking? What are your thoughts?
First of all, absolutely. Fairfax, we adopted a reading curriculum for the first time in the last 40 years, right? And, part of my team, I have an equity team, is to work with our people in our literacy shop to ensure that the curriculum that we're putting in front of students is culturally responsive. And so that's part of our equity work. And I also want to say something based on what you said. Your data in your district tells a story. And when it comes to race, if students in underserved communities are not being served at the same level as the majority, then that's part of our equity work too. You can't shy away from race in this conversation. It's just not only about race. But if, our equity policy in Fairfax ensures that we are looking and seeing if our underserved students are being served at the same level as our majority students as well.
I love it. Let me keep going. Dr. Goffney, there's, I made reference to it when I was reading your bio, and here we are. The Houston Chronicle included Dr. Goffney among the 37 most fascinating, controversial, and notorious Houstonians 2024. You tell us whatever you want to tell us. What does that mean in terms of the three words?
Principal Kafele.
Kafele. Put the F first.
Kafele. Thank you.
There you go.
Well, thank you, Principal Kafele. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah. Yes.
I'm having some technical problems.
I hear you.
Okay, great. Listen, it's one of those things that I just decided that I was going to own. It's been an interesting year, as you know, or may not know, but some of your followers know I've been a superintendent for 17 years, started off in a small rural school district, Cold Spring, Texas. Shout out to some of our Cold Spring people who are joining us. And I ended up serving in East Texas, Lufkin ISD. We did great work out there. Shout out to any of those who are joining us as well. And so for the last 7 years, so 7 of the 17 years, I've been in Aldine ISD, and urban education is totally, totally different. And than any other place that I've served. And in all of them, though, leadership has mattered. And so one of the things that I'm unapologetic about is making sure that the kids that I serve, that we demonstrate on the promise of a public education for and manifest the hopes, dreams, and aspirations of the parents who send their kids into our care. And many times that's tough work, that's hard work. And perhaps that award, I don't know if it's an award, but I was named to the list. And it was just something to kind of consider as you lead. People are going to say all kinds of things about you. But one thing you've got to be clear about, number one, is your calling, your purpose, and staying true to it no matter what people are saying. So I added it to my resume because literally I am listed with billionaires, and there's other days that I'm listed with, I'm called out other things. But regardless of what people call me, I've got to be able to measure and think about the impact and measure how we're working to change the lives of the students that we serve.
So therefore, receiving that the way you intended, I hope. Talk to us about leadership, where one takes the position, which I think you have taken, that I'm going to walk in my own truth and in my authenticity. Talk to us about that, but also the pitfalls to being that.
Oh, it's definitely tough. It is hard. It's tough each and every day. But one thing that I know, and for me for me, no matter what people say, no matter what people write, no matter how many awards I receive or positions I hold, I'm still the country girl from Cold Spring, Texas, born in poverty, raised by grandparents who, if someone was betting, they wouldn't have bet that I'd be sitting here on the Principal Kalefe show this morning. I know you said don't call it the show, but to us, to those of us who are in the arena fighting, we're so thankful for the work that you're doing for the principals across this country. And so it's an honor to be here. And but that's not something that anyone would have seen as even possible. But public education made it possible. And so I'd say with my colleague a lot of times, I'm not the exception. If we do the work, if we lead, if we show up, if we do what we need to do, we'll have more stories about how students have access and opportunity through public education. And so I think that's the driving force behind leadership. Many of my mentees across this country, of course, they want the position, and I try to encourage them to not be focused on a position, because you should be able to do good work where you are. Everyone in a school system should be a leader, from the teacher in the classroom to the bus driver. Everybody should be a leader. But then to whom much is given, much is required. So those who are on the campus, who are APs and principals, there's a higher calling, and there's more that has to be done. I love the ones that you just mentioned, and I'm sure you're going to refer back to them in my instructional leadership team, because it's absolutely right. What is the experience of being a student under your leadership? Like literally thinking about that. And then as we think about leadership and how it permeates the entire building and every experience, you have to also know, and I've actually been asked this in interviews, what would you prefer? You know, one amazing principal and 30 mediocre teachers, or 30 amazing teachers and one mediocre leader? And I'm going to bet on leadership every time. I may be wrong, but I'm going to bet on leadership every time, because literally teachers will rise to the expectations of leadership. Sometimes we think that we have a kid problem, or we have a teacher issue, but I know I'm calling it like I see it. So some of your listeners may not agree, but we have a leadership problem, and we have to have people who are courageous enough to do the work regardless of some of what may be said, and not just aspire to the position.
You know, it's interesting you say that. I say very often, Doc, I say, show me a school with phenomenal teachers, but an ineffective leader, and I'll show you an underperforming school. It may perform high, but it's not performing at its potential, right? But on the flip side, you show me a school full of first year, fresh out of college teachers, never done this, but a great visionary principal that understands fully his or her role in developing those teachers, and I'll show you a school that's on its way to greatness. I'm with you.
That's right.
Leadership matters, right? I bet on leadership every time. Hey, Dr. King, and I want two of you, by the way, we didn't get a chance to talk about this off camera, but feel free to jump in on each other, right? Feel free. Dr. King, according to your bio, you spent 9 years of your life as a principal, and that's when we met during your principal years, driving initiatives that significantly improved student achievement, reduced suspensions, and promoted school-wide literacy. That really jumped out at me, and I would dare say that those three items, that's what we're all looking for, right? Student achievement, reduction in discipline, and that the children can read, right, at grade level or beyond, right? So my question to you, going back to those principal years, what was it about your leadership that improved student achievement, that reduced suspensions, that promoted school-wide literacy? And I want you to listen to the word that I used. I didn't say what was it about Nardos King. I said, Dr. Nardos King, I said, what was it about your leadership that brought about those results?
So, one, I'm Ron Brown's daughter, my dad, right, who always, as I was raised in a small town in New Jersey, told that if you see a problem, stop complaining about it and try to fix it, right? And, I was lucky to be an assistant principal in the same school that I became principal of. So I was part of the leadership team and hungry to get maybe one day to that role where I could take what I've learned as an assistant principal and, elevate at the principalship. But I always think that, I'm not the smartest person in the room, and I'm okay with that. But I hired a great team of assistant principals. And when we saw a problem, we sat down together and used all the talent around the room to solve the problem. So, I recognized very early in my principalship, and even when I was an assistant principal, that we had many students in our school that was not reading at grade level. And, we got high school students with a fourth grade reading level. And what can we do about that? I created an intervention period before it was mandatory to do so in Fairfax County. In the first 30 minutes of that intervention period, everybody in my entire school had to read. Everybody. My custodians were reading, my cafeteria workers were reading, my teachers were reading, my students were reading, and everybody in the main office was reading too, right? Because we had to show the students that, reading is going to increase your vocabulary is going to increase your comprehension skills, and maybe that's going to help you do better in your classes, right? Because we didn't have a whole lot of reading teachers at the high school level, right? We expected our students to come to us with that skill set. But understanding that there were at least 50% of my 9th and 10th grade students after we tested that were not reading on grade level, that's something that we implemented. And we got pushback. We got pushback from a lot of students because they were not used to reading books, right? And I did not let them read magazines. Although that reading is reading, I wanted them to get used to reading novels, reading books, reading fiction, reading nonfiction, and increase their love for reading. So that helped with, at least our teachers shared, that it helped with students staying focused, particularly in classes where reading was really, really important. What was the other question you asked, Baruti? I'm sorry.
No, that was it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, one thing about being a principal, you have to have a strong set of assistant principals as well. And I felt like when I was an assistant principal for 5 years, it was one of my favorite jobs. Principal was my favorite. Assistant principal was my second favorite job because I got to work closely with my students. And I just want to share this. Yesterday, I was visiting one of the schools in our district. And one of my former students is an assistant principal at this school. And I asked him to walk with me through classes. And what I loved about that moment with him, when I remembered him as a student, I didn't know then that he would be an assistant principal in one of the schools that was in the system that I'm in. But he knew the names of every student that we came across in the hallway, whether they were in the grade level that he was leading or not. He knew their names and he dapped them up. And I loved it because the students couldn't wait for him to recognize them. And then he recognized them not just by a dap up, but their name too. How's your family? How's your reading class? How's your attendance doing? And I think that that's so important when you want to lead a school, because he's an aspiring principal as well, that, I know that if I had the ability to hire him, I would hire him today, because he already showed me in those moments that I spent with him that he's ready to lead a school.
Yeah. If you could just approximation, how many students do you think may be in that school?
There's probably around close to 1,900 students in that school.
Let's stay there for a second with the name. I always say, man, I've deeply admired that principal that can say the names of the student and knows something of their story. Right, like you really know the children in your school. They're not just like a sir and a ma'am, right? Hey, sir. Hey, young lady. Hey, ma'am. I really know you. Talk to the fam on here, because we got a lot of aspiring people who are on this thread, right? A lot of folks who are assistant principals who are aspiring to become principal. Talk to the folks about the significance of a leader knowing the names of the students that they lead.
Right. So, when, again, going back to my time in the schoolhouse, and I've been away from the schoolhouse for 10 years, but again, I remember this like it was yesterday. Everybody had duty stations in the morning, and my duty station in the morning was where the buses let the kids off. One, I wanted my face to be the first face that they saw every morning, right, as their principal leading in their schools. And one, I made it a point to try and get to know 2 or 3 more students every day by name. And I can tell you, I might not have known all 2,000 names in my school, but I knew every face that belonged in my building, every face, because I watched them come in, right? So when students came in that weren't part of my school, I knew I could pick them out right away. But you can't lead students you don't know. You can't lead students you don't know. They don't trust you if you don't know them. And when you have challenges in your school and you need your students to step up to the plate, they need to know that you know them and that you care about them. And that is more important before you try to teach them reading, writing, and arithmetic, that you care about them and that they believe that you know who they are and that you're going to, they trust you enough to lead them through their journey in school. I think that that's more important than anything else. Yes, instructional leadership is important, and we know that. But if you don't have the ability to get to know your students at a granular level, it is going to be hard to change any data in your school. My students trusted me. They knew I knew them, and they knew I didn't play about them as far as discipline was concerned, their behavior in my school, and what I expected them to do every day in that classroom. And I had some strong instructional leaders on my team as well.
Woo! To the
Wow.
fam out there, before I go to Dr. Goffney, take out a pen, y'all. Just get a pen out here. Forget the technology. Grab a pen and some paper. Write this down, y'all. First person. I can't lead students that I don't know. Just write that down. I can't lead students that I don't know. How you going to lead somebody you don't know? Right? So write that down, put it in your wallet, put it in your notebook, put it somewhere that you can just refer to it on a regular basis. And then when you walk those halls on Monday, look at each student, look in their eyes and ask yourself, do I know him? Do I know her? Then come back to us mentally and emotionally. Ooh, but they told us. Dr. King told us, I got to know the student. I can't lead them if I don't know them. Good stuff. Dr. Goffney, you there? If not, I'm gonna stay with you. If not, let's see if she comes back. See, that's what happened when you lead in all them schools, right?
There she is.
That work don't stop, baby. Hey, Doc, listen. I want to go to your bio again. 2024 District Administration listed you as one of the 100 most influential educators in the nation. That was just the other day, right? 2024. I want to ask you a specific question regarding principals. You lead. I was trying to count it last night. Is it 82 schools?
Yes, and we're closing some, thankfully, and that's a different story for another day. But yes, around 80.
Yeah, that's a lot of schools. That's a lot of schools. So for me, Dr. Goffney, you know, I always say this, you may look at it through a different lens because you're in the seat. I'm just someone that observes it from afar. But I've been on a lot of superintendent interviews. I've never had a dream of being a superintendent. I've never wanted it. I still don't want it. I'll never do it. I feel confident saying that. But I had boards of education in New Jersey that saw a superintendent in me. So they would take me on these secret clandestine meetings somewhere to interview. And I just go to hear what they got to say. And I would say to them on all those meetings, I said, you like me now, but you will not like me when I become superintendent. And here's why. Because for me, the most important person in the district from my seat as superintendent is the principal of every building. As important as the children are, from where I sit, the principal is the most important person. So therefore, I got to spend a little of my time during the day, mornings, instead of coming to my office, I got to go to schools. And I don't want to micromanage them. I just want to see. I want to be able to put my head on the pillow knowing that this school is being led by the right person. Right. So that was me. And then a close second would probably be my business administrator. Right.
Of course.
Right. So and that person might be ahead of the principal. I'm not sure. But they like running neck and neck. Right. So here's the thing. What measures, and I don't need you to talk about all, Dean, only if you want to. I want to, because I don't, for the reasons that I said earlier, I don't need y'all having people looking at y'all sideways. So you can be consultant on this. What measures does a superintendent need to have in place to increase the probability that the principals in each of the individual schools is on point?
That's good. That's good. And let me just get it out there. Dr. King, listen, if I could have 80 principals like you were, I would be so excited. And my favorite role too was the assistant principal's role, because I think if you can be a good assistant principal, you're going to be you can be a good principal as well. And so to your point, Principal Kafele, let me just say with absolute certainty, while my CFO is important right now, especially during these times, the most important role is the principalship. And like Dr. King, I can look back and sometimes I'll go on a tangent because I was a good principal. I was the one that was very visible. I knew how to high five. I knew how to meet students where they are. I knew how to build relationships with the parents and make sure that teachers understood that expectations were high and that we need to do everything we could to make sure that our kids had the very best experience. And so the thing that I see now, and while I have 80 schools, I definitely am very active. I don't micromanage because if I have to micromanage, we definitely need someone new in the position. But I do have an expectation. I meet with every single principal that's hired. And when they're in the seat in my office, I ask them this one question at the end before they're named the new principal of the school, basically aligned to something that I've heard you say very often. What's going to be true or what's going to be your impact at the end of this year, your first year as principal in this in this campus? And many times they can rat off, oh, we're going to make sure and we're going to improve culture, we're going to improve achievement, we're going to improve, and so they can say the right things. But then when I go and visit to see if they're doing the right things, it's evident. Literally, you cannot fake being good. And kids, they know that oh, you're in the hall? They'll tell it in a minute. Or the fact that their presence is there, it's not evident with the teachers, or you can tell that there's no relationship. They don't know any of the teachers. They don't know any of the any of the students. You can just tell that their presence isn't making the positive difference that they were hired to do. And so to answer your question, as a superintendent, I totally 100% agree. And then when you see that, you can't unsee that because we recognize that you can't do that year over. You can't do those years over. You've got to do something to make sure that you have a high-performing principal on the campus if you want to see the improvements that are needed today.
Yeah. That is absolutely critical. So therefore, I never lose sight, Dr. Goffney, of who my core audience is on this platform every Saturday, which is why I get up and I'm fired up and to come on here every Saturday morning. I want you to talk directly to somebody out there who's, let's say they're not in the position yet, they're aspiring to get into that principal seat. Mm-hmm. What is your advice to that person that's watching right now in real time toward this person becoming the best version of themselves relative to their leadership one day? What steps do they need to be taking right now?
First of all, they need to be doing a good job where they are. Like, what is your impact in the position that you're in right now? So whether they're an AP, an instructional coach, or a teacher, you got to be able to say, because I have taught this group of students, or because I have served as an assistant principal or instructional coach on this campus, I've been able to do X, Y, and Z. So you have to have a measurable impact. Number two, I think is so important, and that principals, you don't necessarily have to be charismatic. That's not what we're looking for. Right, but you have to have an ability to connect with people. You've got to be able to connect with whether it's staff members, connect with parents, connect with families, connect in general, so that you can make sure that that's evident throughout your building. Some people call it building relationships and so on and so forth. But the ability to connect is so important. And then, of course, sometimes, and depending on where you're serving, and in my district, all means all, because over 90% of our students come from economically disadvantaged homes. 100% of our schools are Title I schools. So we're trying to, it's not magic, but we have to do the work. Schools where the magic happens. And so we've got to have people who are committed to the work and committed to making a positive difference. So we can't have people who are position led, like they only want the position. And so whoever is out there, wherever you are, be able to describe your impact, be able to know what your impact is, be able to know how you made a positive difference in your current position, and then make it your business to be able to connect each and every day with different stakeholders around your school and around your system, and know how you will communicate in the event that you get an interview of how you're going to continue to make those connections so that you can do positive things on your district. And you got to have a spirit of inspiration. And again, it's not necessarily charisma, but you got to get people to move from where they are to where they want to be so that they can become a part of moving the work forward.
I need to jump in here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I need to jump in, right? First of all, double down on everything LaTonya said. But, I often do career counseling here in my district. I offer that to anybody that, wants to, hear some advice from somebody who's been there. And what I recognize a lot of times is that people who have the desire to move into school leadership, whether it's assistant principal or principalship, a lot of them, when they speak to me, I hear they want the position. And like Dr. Goffney said, right, the positions are always going to be there. And there's always going to be many people competing for that position for you. But what makes you different? Because I'm honestly, and I can say this truthfully, I started as a principal secretary in an elementary school in Fairfax County Public Schools 29 years ago. And I was in that job, and I transferred to a high school to become the finance tech. So I was in charge of the money in the school. I loved my job. I had a TV in my office and a door. But I also got involved with school-related stuff. I had a business degree. My principal said to me, go apply for this program to become a teacher. I applied for the program, and I became an instructional assistant the first year and then a teacher the second year, because she tapped me on the shoulder because of what I did in that school outside of my job duties, showed her something different than what she was seeing in her school. I became a teacher. I taught for 5 years. That same leader tapped me on the shoulder and said, go to this program and get your licensure for assistant principal. I wasn't looking for an assistant principal job. I loved every job that I sat in, and I was the best person in that role while I was in it. When you're the best person at what you do, somebody is going to come and tap you to put you on their team. This woman created a position in her school so that I could stay there because of what I showed her I did every day as a teacher. Then I became an assistant principal. I loved that job because I loved my students and the students that I had impact on and the teachers that I got to work with every day to try and inspire them to be the best for our scholars every day that they worked in the room. That same leader tapped me to go apply to be a principal. I wasn't sitting in my office going, when am I going to get an opportunity? When am I going to become a principal? Those jobs were pushed in front of me by people who saw something in me because I worked hard every day to have impact in the role. Even when I was a principal secretary and I didn't like it because I couldn't type, I was the best person in that role at that time. And I think sometimes we think because we go to school and a college or university gives us a degree and then we get a certification, we believe that we're owed a job. Nobody is owed these positions, right? Because people are looking for the best talent that's going to have impact on their students and teachers in their school every day. Not because you got a degree from Harvard or not because you got a degree from an HBCU. You have to show them that you're going to bring something different than they already have on their team. And you can do that by shining in the role that you currently have every day. And I guarantee you somebody's going to come tap you and want you on their team. That's the advice that I like to give to people, because I think too many people think, oh my God, I got my first interview, I'm going to get that job. You might not get the first job, the second job, the third job, and that's okay, because the job that you're supposed to have is going to show up. And when you don't get the job, give yourself 24 hours to mourn the loss of that position and move on. Because if you get stuck in feeling sorry for yourself because somebody didn't recognize you as the person on their team that day, you're never going to be able to shine in your next interview to be the person that person is looking for to be on their team that day as well.
You know, you got me smiling on that, because I was talking to a group. I'm not going to name where they are, but I hope some of them are on right now. They'll know when I say this. I said to them, when I'm in this room in your district, I have to talk one way because I'm under contract. I said, but when you check me on Saturday, I may contradict something. And so I'm going to do it right now, because I always say, if that position doesn't feel like it's for you, there's something somewhere else that's got your name on it. But you can't wed yourself to a district because you were born there, right? You grew up there, and I just can't leave here. No, if you're being mistreated, if it's adversely affecting you emotionally, mentally, right? You're not happy. You're not excited about waking up in the morning and going there. Another city, another town, another part of the state, another part of the country, that your place exists and your name is on it. but you got to have the courage to go after it. Let me bring Dr. Goffney back up here. You got to have the courage to go after it, right?
Yeah.
But as Dr. King said, then you got to bring the best you, because I'm going to agree with you. I don't care where you went to school. I ain't never, I mean, all the teachers I brought that I interviewed and APs, I never got swayed by no university.
Mm-mm.
That don't mean nothing to me. I don't even know where they went. Right? That's not important to me. I want to see how you shine in that interview. And keep this in mind. Most of my interviews were not like 15 and 30 minutes. They were to the candidate, can you spend the day with me? Like, can we go 8:30 to 3? Because then if you fake the funk with me for the first 30 minutes, it's going to come out at some point, because you can't suppress that for a whole day. Right. So it's going to come out. So I'll know after the day, oh, I need you. Let's get that contract to you. Right. Let's get that board approval, all that kind of thing. So I love it, man. I appreciate you sharing all that. Let me go to Dr. Goffney, and then I'm going to go to these talking points that we have. Therefore, with everything that we've discussed thus far, Dr. Goffney, if we could take the educator side of you and compartmentalize it and put everything else over here, as an educator, as I ask every guest that blesses us with their presence on this platform, who is Dr. LaTonya as an educator? Who are you?
Listen, as I stated earlier, just a country girl trying to demonstrate what's possible for Black, Brown, and students of poverty. Someone who is just passionate about education, because education changed my life. Someone who hopes to just inspire people to be their very best selves so that we can change the world that we live in. Someone who's just focused on doing right by those who are the most marginalized, the ones who are striving and wanting to live the American dream, because, it's only through education that I get to live the dream. So wanting to make sure that others have that opportunity. And so literally, I'm just trying to make the world a better place through public education.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. The exact same question for you, Dr. King. We compartmentalize you just on the education side. Who is Dr. Nardos King?
I feel like in my entire life, I've been blessed with access and opportunity. And every day that I show up, I want to make sure that every student that I touch, whether it's, through my job as Chief Equity Officer or my role in service to our community, is to ensure that students, particularly students that look like my own kids, have access and opportunity to greatness. And God put me in a situation where I'm at a table with very, very powerful voices that impact the lives of 183,000 students every day. And what I have and what I've learned to be okay with is have courage. Because if I lose my job because I said the right thing, then it wasn't my job to have, right? And so who I am every day is a person who shows up with authenticity about my life experiences, the experiences of my own children. And because I know that my kids had privilege and that they had opportunities because I was their principal, then I felt the need to make sure that every child whose hand I touched had those same access and opportunity. And I bring that to the table. Sometimes I step on toes, and I understand that. I'm not a mean person, but I am a direct person when it comes to our kids.
You said something that's going to take me off script, right? Like it ain't in these notes. But I want to ask the two of you this question based on, you didn't say this. This is where my mind went when you said it. You're in that central office position, Chief Equity Officer. So you have access to principals. Let's say that, let me put it this way. The three of us are conducting a breakout session at NABSE, right? And a question comes from the audience. And they ask all three. I'm not going to answer. I'm going to give it to the two of you. They'll say, what is your advice to the principals regarding how they use social media, right? And because we know that some people get in trouble behind that, right? And if not trouble, they got a lot of people looking at them funny, right? So let me go to you, Dr. King. What would you say to our younger principals out here, or any principal, but I always got the young ones in my mind. What would you say to them about appropriate use, their own use, appropriate usage of social media in the capacity of principal?
Right. I think that once you take the role, you have to understand that you are no longer the individual. You are the principal 24/7 a day, right? Whether it's on social media or out in the public. If you're at a basketball game, if you're at a baseball game, if you're at anywhere, people are always going to respond to you in, Principal King, right? Or that's my principal. So my advice is, if what you post on social media, you would be okay with your superintendent reading that, then you're good. Right? Reading it, and it's not going to bring you any trouble. If what you post on social media, you're okay with your parents reading that, and it's not going to bring you any backlash, then you're good. But I think that when you accept this role, you accept it with the understanding that some of your freedoms are not going to be the same, right? And I check myself often, and sometimes I will post something on social media to get my point across, and I delete it in 24 hours, right? Because I know that there are people who are always looking to see what I say out there, to twist it, angle it, so that it becomes a distraction and I can't do my job. So I recognize that I don't have the freedom, because when I retire, it's going to be a Thelma and Louise type thing out there. But while I'm responsible and have power and privilege in the school system, then I recognize there's not everything that I can't say belongs on social media. Whether it's pictures that I post, I never post anything that's inappropriate. Please don't do that, because you are not going to be able to do your job every day and be respected as the leader of people's children if you decide that you want to post a drinking binge from a club, or your political views that are so out of line with that it's going to bring and draw attention, not just to you, to your school district as well. Don't do it. Don't do it. And if you need to post it and then not post, or type it and not post it just to make you feel good, do that. Or go to the mirror in your bathroom and talk it off to talk you off the ledge. Don't do it, because your job will be in jeopardy. And then that impact that you wanted to have on some people's children, you won't have the opportunity to do that. Not just today, but for a very long time.
Love it. Love it. Dr. Goffney, jump on in here.
Oh, absolutely. I'm itching to, because what Dr. King has said is absolutely true. Period, exclamation mark. But there is an opportunity that we have to seize when we serve in certain school districts. Starting off in a rural district like Cold Spring, Texas, we were one of the smallest but first to jump on social media, because we don't have a newspaper. So the only thing that people were reading, we had a weekly newspaper. We wanted to have information to our parents to be able to communicate immediately. So we embraced social media. And then when I served in Lufkin, similar thing. East Texas didn't have, we had a local paper that had their own focus. So we wanted to make sure and share the great things that were happening, because we recognized that we were losing students. And then in this urban area, it's so important, because the news and the media is only going to show what's happening bad. And so we have to tell our own stories. So I would say to the principals, to the leaders, to the teachers, and you can kind of see it. I love what X used to be about and what Twitter was when it originated. We have a hashtag every single year. And our hashtag this year is Aldine Impact. And you can put it in Facebook, you can put it in Twitter, you can put it, I'm going the other LinkedIn and everything. All of our teachers, everybody are using it, and it shows our community what's happening in our schools. And so I love it, because it's like a walk. I tell our teachers at convocation that they're the walking billboards for our schools. And so if they're able to share how they're connecting with our students, the great things that are happening in our schools, and they're able to hopefully refute the negativity that's sometimes out there that's portrayed because people are just putting the bad news, then that's also good. To Dr. King's point too, just know before anybody's hired, your social media is searched. And so when it's searchable, you're also building your brand. And I don't want you to be so focused on your brand that you can't do anything else. Because there's one thing, there are people with great brands, you go to their social media, and you're like, oh my gosh, they're going to knock it out the park. And then when you really start asking the questions or looking for the data on how they've really improved or what impact they've had on their campuses, is not there. So it's kind of fake social media per se, or fake branding. But I do think there's a positive purpose for social media for not only the position that you're in, for public education in general, but
Yeah.
for the position you aspire to be.
I love it. You know, there's someone in the chat, and I haven't been highlighting because I don't know if I'm being trolled or if Joyce Elliott, are you serious at what you're telling me? I don't know. I can't interpret it because I don't have any context. Because I haven't wanted to post to highlight. Let me just say this. You specified, Joyce Elliott, that you're white, right? And I didn't know if I wanted to put that up because this wasn't a race question.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we didn't get a race response. So for you to say to me that you're a white woman, my mind is saying, well, why are you telling me that? I can see that from your picture, unless you're talking to people in the chat and I don't know that. Right. So but the question is not a race-based question. The question is just how we use social media. Right. So clarify for me, Joyce Elliott, so I'll know that I can highlight your responses on the thread. Right. Let me go to these talking points here. Here we go. So Dr. King, you had said, and I read these all the time when I post them. School leaders drive instructional excellence by investing in targeted professional development for teachers, directly enhancing student outcomes. We didn't get a chance to really rap about a few things because we were dealing with the technology. But this is just your opportunity to shine. Just teach us. What is that saying?
Right. So as a school principal, your teachers are only as good as you allow them to be.
Mm.
They're only as trained as you provide the training for them, right? We know school budgets are cut and slashed, and it's very difficult for teachers to go out and find out what's the latest and greatest so that we can have great impact on our students. That's why it's important for you to bring in folks, right, around targeted professional development. When I wanted to increase my scores in math, because it was the only area that was holding us from being fully accredited by the state of Virginia, right? I went to conferences and found the best math PD I could find and brought it back to my school, right? Because I couldn't afford to send people out. I had to make sure that my budget allowed me to bring people in. I still remember bringing you in to talk about culture and climate in my school because I needed teachers to hear from somebody other than me, because, you know, I aligned with what you were sharing out in the world. And this is what, like almost 15 years ago, right? It's important that when you see a problem and you want improvement, that you find the latest and greatest professional development that's out there and put it in front of the people who need it the most, right? Because if you keep doing the same thing every day, you're going to get the same outcome that you're getting. And if the outcome needs to be different, then you need to go find what's different, what's new, what's exciting, and what's working, and put it in front of your staff. They're only going to get as good as you train them to be.
And I want to remind the two of you that feel free to jump in on each other's talking point. That's perfectly fine. I'm gonna jump in myself on this one. You said that we determine, to paraphrase you, the effectiveness of a teacher via the type of professional learning that we expose them to in our schools, right? And if we're not exposing them to the kind of professional learning that they need to be exposed to, then unless they seek it out on their own, they essentially don't have it. So my question to you: how does a leader know what it is, who it is, what it is I need, what resource I want to use? How do I go about it? Because on the one hand, I'm this principal, but I may not necessarily be thinking like there's another hat that you and I wear called professional developer. And I may not necessarily be proficient in that hat, right? Which impacts my proficiency as a principal. How do I know, what do I do to set up a real professional learning program in my school? That's still you, Doc King.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. You know, it's interesting that when I became a principal, I didn't know how to do that, right? But I started going to NABSE every year. And when you engage and expose yourself to things outside of your district, right? Because a lot of us depend on our districts to bring the professional development that we're seeking to our schools, but sometimes that doesn't happen. So every year, I've been going to NABSE for 27 years. I've never missed a NABSE conference in the last 27 years.
Wow.
And while I was principal, I learned from people who were providing staff development workshops on areas. I was deliberate in going to spaces where, math was a big issue for me, right? And it didn't just have to be about math. It had to be about good instructional practices and going out and learning what other school districts are doing, going out and collaborating with other educators around the country who are having improvement, ensuring that you're reading the latest, greatest through making sure that you are subscribing to ASCD and other organizations that provide that kind of structure for you will help you start. But, really it's about making sure that you have the proper team around the table, right? And using what we're experienced with, using what we're learning when we go outside of our spaces, and not being afraid to bring those spaces into our schools to ensure that continued learning is going to happen, right? Because like you said, sometimes teachers don't seek because they think every day that they're doing what they're supposed to do, because that's all they know. But finding other, educators out there who are having breakthroughs and bringing those breakthroughs to your school. That's what I did, right? Like I learned from learning from others. That's the best way I could do it. I didn't know everything. I didn't have the traditional trajectory. I wasn't an education major in undergrad. So everything that I did, I learned by reading, I learned by research, and I learned by learning from other people. And bringing staff development into your school can be helpful if you learn from people like you, attending your academy, a free academy every week for the last 256 weeks could bring so many nuggets, not just by your speakers, but just what you have to offer in the world and what you've been offering the world for the last, 20 something years that I've known you.
I appreciate that. You said something. You said not being afraid to bring those spaces at the conference into your space. I want to stay there for a second. And Dr. Goffney, you feel free to jump in on this one as well. But let me play devil's advocate. So I went to the NABSE conference, and this presentation was powerful. I was ready to jump out of my chair, but I am afraid to bring that same energy to my staff, even though I know my staff will benefit because I understand the politics in my district, for example, just off the top of my head. What do you say to that leader?
What are you afraid of? Right? If it's fire and it's going to bring student improvement to your school, you have to be able to show that, right? So whatever you bring into your space, the outcome better be student improvement, right? You're not just wasting district dollars to bring somebody who, can talk the talk, but they better be able to help you walk the walk as well. So don't be afraid of people who are, somebody like you who's been out there and has proven outcomes with student engagement, student achievement. When I brought you in, right, it was a time where, money was tight, but I knew that what I would get from you, I wasn't able to give to my staff in that moment, right? And in the end, it had positive change. My teachers went back fired up for kids. And if somebody were to ask me, how did I use these dollars? I'm going to show them what the outcome was from having you in my school. So don't just go out there and just tap anybody. You better be able to share with those who look at your funding that having this person in my school or having this professional development with my teachers is going to get me this. And here's the documentation that shows that impact has happened already. Dr. Goffney, what do you do in your district?
Oh, I totally, absolutely 100% agree with everything that both of you alluded to. I believe, number one, there's not a one size trick per se. So literally, you're not going to be fooled by snake oil. You got to do the work. And so, and not saying that anyone would do this, but the thing that we have to make sure that our principals understand is the leadership starts with them. And so there's several different pieces. There's your personal and professional development and making connections that are going to I say all the time that iron sharpens iron, and being out around people who help you to think differently about how you can solve whatever problem that persists on your campus. So that's one piece, your own personal professional development. And regardless of whether the district pays for it or you have to invest in it personally, I think that's important. And then when you know that there's a culture issue or there's a leadership opportunity or whatever, there are ways in which our district does have autonomy to be able to bring in speakers. However, some of it is earned autonomy. You can't just be out and bringing this person in, that person in, this thought in, that thought in, and it's not aligned with strategically improving your district. You can't abdicate your responsibility to lead. And while I love Principal Kafele and I look forward to him coming to our district, I know he's been in Houston and our people have attended, and everybody, all my principals are on now, they love Principal Kafele. But ultimately, Principal Kafele is going to leave. And so one of those nuggets is evident in how you show up as a leader every single day for the campus that you're leading in order to make it better. And so that's the piece that we got to make sure that we are intentional about as well. It can't just be, I attended this conference, that's going to help me improve my campus. You got to do the work, and you got to be committed to being a learner, being someone who continuously evolves and networking with those who are doing the work. There's an old quote that you become the 5 people that you hang around with most. So are the principals that you're aligning with, the principals that you're attending conferences with, different people that you're learning from, are they moving the needle, or are you all just comfortable being principals and celebrating the fact that you've arrived in that position? And so that's the only thing I would push our audience to understand, that your own personal development is so important. And then strategically making sure that the PD that our teachers receive is going to help you to move the needle and get better. And there should be some measurable piece of impact as well.
I love it. You know, I smiled. I had to pull out my let me shamelessly plug. I had to pull out what is my value instructionally to the teacher I supervise, the new joint.
We need that.
Amazon right now. Get your copy. ASCD. Get your copy now. Right. But when you said what you said about me coming in and I'm going to leave, right? I got this in the introduction. It says, you got sources of professional learning, conferences, institutes, academies, seminars, lectures, presentations, podcasts, live streams, videos, modules, books, journals, blogs, professional learning networks, social media, PLNs, right? I say, but the thing is, the teacher can go to the conference or any of these things and get excited. But the commonality to this list is none of these folks are going to be in your classroom Monday morning to observe your implementation of what got you excited at the conference on Friday, right? So that's where we come in. And if we're not that person, because like AP out there, because you know you're some AP that's watching right now, you're with a principal that's utilizing you as a full-time disciplinarian. You start with this referral mess at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it doesn't end until an hour after the kids are gone. So it's dismissal at 3, and you still doing preaching sermons and referrals up until 4 o'clock, right? So therefore, you're not in a position to facilitate the process of that teacher becoming phenomenal, because you will never see that teacher except for when it's compliance with an evaluation, a required observation and evaluation. So all of that's got to change. And that's why this platform exists. And that's why these great people come on here, so that we can change that kind of thinking, that you are the professional development, right? That matters in terms of who you are as coach of the teachers that you supervise. Love it. Love it. Let me go to this next one. Y'all good on time? You good? Very good. Very good. We a long session, man. We do like 2 hours, but some of them go for 3. When we had Quinice Miller, y'all, you know her, Doc Goffney from Houston. We were on for about 3 hours, you know. But we ain't gonna do 3 hours today. I promise you. Let me go. Let me see. Dr. Goffney, you said you kept it real simple on this one. You said leadership matters.
It does.
Talk to us.
Well, I don't know if any other time it was more evident or across the world. It was during COVID. And I know many of us may not believe it happened, but for those of us who can remember COVID happening, there was a need for leadership at every level, whether it was locally, at the state level, at the federal level, and across the world. We needed someone to lead us. And so as we think about that, and you go on any campus and you identify any problem, I don't care what the problem is, and I challenge anyone who's listening to tell me any problem that exists at a school. I know there it needs to be resourced. I know we need to have good people. I know we need to have all those different things. But more importantly, as we said at the top of the hour, was you have to have a great leader, because a good leader is going to hire well. A good leader is going to have those expectations. A good leader is going to advocate for the needs of the campus, and a good leader is going to be able to follow leadership. And I don't know any other superintendent. I see a couple of my sister suits who are logged on. I every superintendent wants to have good principals who, number one, accept feedback. You know, we say in our district that feedback is a gift. Being able to move forward and grow, who accepts responsibility for their own professional development, and who can grow other leaders. One of the things I'm proud of is a number of superintendents that are serving across our country because they've either worked with me, or they've gotten to know me, or they serve as a mentor. I'm also proud of the fact that we have leaders who understand that. Good leaders, you know, I'm married to a preacher, and I hate to use this, but they beget other leaders. And so you have, you know, some of Maxwell's work and even your work, I've heard literally good leaders hire well. If you're a 10, you'll hire a 10. But many times we get mediocrity because we have leaders who are 6 or 7 who are struggling and are intimidated by a 10. Because one of the areas that I hope we get a little bit of time on for any aspiring assistant principal out there, because that's where we are seeing a definite need, having strong assistant principals. And I brag about the fact that I was the best. Like literally, I wish Ms. Hargrove, my former principal, was on. She knew that she didn't have to show up because I was going to show up. She knew that it's bigger than being an armor bearer. It's just bigger than all of that. And I recently had a meeting with our middle school APs and principals, and I could tell how the APs were showing up and the principals were showing up. And I just sensed something, and I can't really speak to it right now. I'll hopefully be able to speak to another day and show you. But I could sense how productive they were, about how well they work together. And so how much preparation our APs are getting so that they can become principals. And I think that there's an opportunity there to grow. And so I've been saying it for 17 years as a soup. I've experienced it as a teacher and administrator. And so I'm going to always believe that leadership does in fact matter.
I love it. You know, you mentioned the APs, and I'm gonna go way out of sequence because I may not even get to everything today. We probably do a part 2 at some point, but I just want to go to it. Where we at? Number 8. You said assistant principals and principals are unsung heroes. We must empower them, support them, and remind them that their work is not just valuable, but it's indispensable. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to speak to that, but that you also wrote a personal one, and I knew I wouldn't have time for it, but let me read it and then infuse this into your response. You said, being an assistant principal was my favorite job ever. It taught me so much, and it really set me up for everything else I've done in leadership. I know it sounds funny, but dealing with books, butts, and buses was more valuable than I could have imagined. It prepared me for every leadership position I've ever held since. So infuse that into that number 8 there, and floor is yours, Doc.
Absolutely. And so I see the assistant principal's role as bigger than books, butts, and buses now. Trust me, I know that. I also know that our assistant principals is more important to that they are the instructional leaders that are needed so that they're prepared to enter into the principal's role. Less managerial, even though you have to have those skills as well as your focus. But perhaps one of the things is a service mindset. I am sensing, and again, it may just be me, that assistant principals, as I alluded to earlier, don't come with aren't hired and knowing that not only do I have to know instruction, but I also have to know how to have that service mindset and get done whatever needs to get done, because the principal has so many things that are on their plate. And so when I say they're the unsung heroes, they really are. I would literally trade anything and everything to have a highly effective principal, and AP, and administrative team on each campus. That will solve so many of my problems as a superintendent. Literally, it won't solve resource problems, but I many times it solves the resource and the finance issues too, because many times people want more people because they're not effectively using the people that they have, and many times that starts on the top. Anyone they always say, oh, I need this person, that person, I need another AP, I need another counselor, I need another this, But if the other people were operating at 100% or at least operating effectively, then you wouldn't need more people. So that's why I said they are the unsung heroes, because the ones where it works, and it is like watching. It's just an amazing experience. And I'll be honest, the majority are doing well. That's why our principals and our APs who are working well and getting the job done and making sure and creating environments where teachers can be productive and supported and get the PDs they receive and be there for our children. Amazing. But it's the time spent with those who are missing the mark. And so what kind of professional development and support can we provide them so that they can meet the mark is perhaps one of the things that I lose sleep about at times. So I truly believe it. And I am greatly, very thankful for the ones. I see you, Ms. Burns. She's on here, one of the best to ever do it. She has APs who become principals. She's one of my top tier principals in our district. And she has APs who work for her who now become principals, and now they're highly effective. And so when I said earlier that good leadership begets good leadership, that's what I mean. I truly believe that iron sharpens iron, and that we have to be in a space and a place to where we're building the leadership capacity of all in our district.
So I want to jump in here too, if I can.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Goffney, for all of that. And I just hear the passion in your voice. I just was having a conversation yesterday with somebody that used to work on my team. And she was considering applying for a principalship, but she had not been an assistant principal. And she wanted to know my thoughts on this. And I hope she's listening today. I'm not sure if she's on this call. But, I am a firm believer in not becoming a principal without sitting in that assistant principal role. When I was a career switcher and when I became a classroom teacher, I truly believe that my first year of students could probably sue me for malpractice. I walked into that classroom and I had no idea what I was doing. None. The next year, I became a team taught teacher with a master teacher. And I thrived under her leadership, watching her in our craft every day, to where I believe that I became a master teacher because of that experience with her. And I believe the same thing with an assistant principal. When I was an assistant principal, I had 3 principals that I worked for during that 5-year span. I learned what was great about them and some things that I wouldn't want to do if I was in that seat, right? But I was able to learn how to be a principal while watching some of the best principals lead every day. And I think it's very, very difficult to step in the role from a classroom teacher to a principalship with all that job encompasses, right? And at the high school level, and this is no disrespect to my middle and elementary school colleagues, but when you're a high school principal, it's like you're running a city, right? You have to deal with everything outside of not just instruction and ensuring that you have student achievement going on, but your athletic program, your facilities, the community coming in and out of your building. And I would not have been able to be, and I think I was a great principal as well, but I don't think I would have been a great principal had I not learned as an assistant principal for those 5 years, seeing how the best did it and seeing how I could improve in some areas where I think we fell short as being part of that team.
Yeah. Ooh, powerful stuff. Powerful stuff. The AP, I'm off script again, and I'll just throw whoever wants to jump in here, right? If not both of you. The principal AP relationship, because of the way that I have positioned myself in the world, outside of in the world as a speaker, consultant, author, I get a lot of inboxes. When I say a lot, I mean more than I can handle. It's just a lot from a lot of people. I welcome them all, I respond to them all, but it may take me a little bit longer than they may want because of the volume. But here's what a lot of folks are writing me. They're assistant principals, and they're saying that the relationship with the principal is toxic. Right now, it could be their fault, but they're not telling me that part. They're blaming the principal 100% of the time. But the bottom line is, it is a toxic relationship. Let me just throw it at you. The same question that comes to me a zillion times. I know what I would say to a principal in terms of correcting that relationship. But the AP is not the one in power. The AP is not the one in charge in that dynamic. What would you say to AP who's in a toxic relationship with principal, meaning that it's not productive. They rarely communicate. It's clear that the principal doesn't like this person. How does the AP survive the year before I start perhaps looking for an exit, seeking an exit strategy to go somewhere else? How do I survive that? And let me add this piece. Knowing that I need a recommendation from this person that I do not get along with. How do I get through that?
I say all the time that people have a right to their own opinion, but they don't have a right to their own facts. And so, and when you're describing that, I'm wondering if the principal hired this particular AP or the AP was inherited. And I'm also wondering about the AP's role in the toxic relationship. And so I would encourage that AP, number one, to seek employment somewhere else for sure. But meanwhile, for the time that's left, to make sure that they continue to show up and do a great job, to continue to show up with an opportunity to serve, to add value. And what I've learned in some of our staff members and APs in general, with the experience that I referred to earlier, when I had a middle school principal in AP, you could tell it was toxic. Like, and you shouldn't be able to tell. Like, you should not be able to tell as an AP that when the principal is talking that they're lying. I mean, the principal's talking and the AP, you can tell from their body language that something's wrong. And you should not be able to. But only good APs understand their role in that. While they want to make sure and communicate to the superintendent that please don't hold me accountable for what they say or whatever. But it's almost like a marriage in many ways. You can tune into my board meetings. I have a great board, and I realize that I'm being recorded, but I have a great board. And so I have to make sure that no matter what's happening in the with the board, that I come across as positively and as focused on improving this district as I possibly can. Yeah. Just what you'll understand, we all have spouses, right? And so when you have a spouse and you go out in the public, you have to, and it's not being fake, it's keeping it, you have to show up as a better person. In private, we may be able to disagree, but in public, but my point is, as I digress, my point is, it is so important that APs understand their role, and so that they're not adding to the toxicity. And that is showing up, being a good assistant principal, recognizing that they're going to have their opportunity. And as Dr. King said earlier, there are things you're going to do different from the principals that you serve. And that's okay. And there are things that you are probably going to do better, because we hope to learn and evolve. However, many times, while the toxicity may be because of the principal does own the power, but it doesn't matter. It didn't matter to me, the principals that I served, it didn't matter how they showed up. And I could describe all kinds of things that was less than desirable. So it's like, we can't choose our kids that come to us. We have to give them the very best that they have. Sometimes we don't get to choose our principal, but we have to choose how we show up and what we do in response to that. So Dr. King, I'll kick it back to you.
Yeah, I agree with what Dr. Goffney said, but I've had situations where me and a team member did not see eye to eye. And I'm a firm believer in this. And I used to say this to teachers at my school too, right? Right now, I've been appointed the captain of this ship, right? There's lots of ships out there. Mm-hmm. My decision-making is going to do what I believe is in the best interest of the students that we serve every day first, before anything else. And I'm okay if you can't get online with that, but I'm going to hold you accountable to that. Yeah. And if it doesn't work out for you, then you need to go find another captain, right? Mm-hmm. And for an AP, that the principal is in charge of that school. They're going to be held accountable for everything that happens or does not happen in that school. And if it doesn't align with who you are as a leader, it's okay to leave, right? Mm-hmm. But don't stay and become part of the conversation, right? That these two are this, because mm-hmm. Unless the superintendent is relieving the principal of their duties, the hierarchy is you probably need to leave. And why would you want to get up every day, right? And go to try and be a positive impact on the world if you're part of a toxic situation, right? It's okay to have that conversation. And, I believe in even having the conversation with your principal, right? Be professional. Mm-hmm. You don't have to use the word toxic, but just say, maybe this is not the right fit for me, and I'm going to need you to help me find a better fit before they can write negative reference for you or stop you from getting out somewhere else.
Mhm.
Don't engage in that negativity, because it's only going to harm you and your future aspirations.
Love it, love it. Let me go to this next one, Dr. King. This is the one I've been waiting for, actually. Um, Based on our off-camera conversation, effective leadership at the principal and assistant principal levels requires prioritizing equity and inclusion, ensuring all students have opportunities to succeed. What are you saying to us?
So I'm going to share that when I was the principal, my school was probably, it shifted over the 20 years that I worked at this school. The demographics shifted greatly from, when I started that school in 1995 till I left that school in 2015. But one thing remained the same, is that students in my IB program did not reflect the overall demographics of my school. I saw it as a teacher, I saw it as an AP, and now as the principal, I was compelled to do something about that, right? So when you want to prioritize, if you want greatness in your building and you want people to see your school as a shining light, then you have to ask yourself, is every student that I'm responsible for serving having the same experience in your building? You have to ask yourself that question, and your data is going to tell you the answer to that question. So if I have students sitting in my IB program and it's not equal to my demographics, then what am I going to do about that? And how am I going to prioritize how we're changing the experiences of students? And I can share with you that, I had an IB program and I had an IB coordinator. And I said to him, I need you to look at every single student's grades in the 10th grade who is performing at the AB level and ask them, why are they not enrolled in our IB level classes in the 11th grade? And that takes a priority, right? And making sure that you're putting your resources into making a positive change for all the students in your school. You want to make sure everybody feels welcome in those classes. So you're having conversations with your teachers to ensure that when we're pushing students to step outside their comfort zone, that they are welcomed and not, seen as somebody that I have to water down my, my teaching to, because I've heard those words and used. But I think it's the responsibility of the leadership to ensure that all students in your school are having the same opportunities and experiences because they can, and not because they've never given the opportunity. I'm going to share this one last story and kick it over to Dr. Goffney. I had a student that had a 4.0, all A's. He was taking standard level courses. I called him into my office and I said, look, I'm going to need you to up your game. You're showing me that you're capable of doing this, right? So next year, I want you to take at least one, if not 2 or 3 IB level courses. And you know what he said to me? He said, Miss King, because I wasn't doctor at the time, Miss King, he goes, I'm doing really well in my classes, and I want to go to the best college that I have an opportunity to. But when I was in 3rd grade and I wanted to be in those harder classes, I was told no. Because, here you take a test in the 2nd grade and we start the paths of students differently, right? You have the advanced academic track and you have the standard level or special education track. And rarely do those students come off those tracks, and so, unless somebody steps in and says, I need to pull you over here, right? That's just the norm. And he said to me, nobody believed in me in 3rd through 9th grade. And we have open enrollment in 9th grade, but those students stay where they've been. And he said to me, nobody believed in me. And now suddenly I'm supposed to push myself out of my comfort zone, right? And nobody believed in me. I didn't have access and opportunity to this rigor before. And I'm afraid, right? I'm afraid to do that. And it's up to us to ensure that we are pushing them in those spaces as early as possible. So to my elementary school colleagues, push those students out, regardless of what a test says. These kids are showing you signs that they're capable of doing it. Put them in the class, because we expect them to be in those classes once they get to us in high schools. And the kids don't have the self-confidence because nobody ever told them that they could. It's our responsibility as leaders to make those changes. I don't hear.
Let's start that thought over.
Okay, because I was
Yeah,
like, is it
yeah,
me?
I'm muted. Yeah,
It was me too.
yeah. Everybody said, they said we can't hear you. Yeah, Dr. King, I just want to go deep, a tad deeper before Dr. Goffney jumps in on it. You said, regardless of what that test says, push that student, and I agree with you, and I know I lived that. There's nobody out here in Jersey that can say Kafele didn't live that, right? Probably to a fault, right? So, but what about that leader that says, but I have to go on the test score. I don't have that luxury. I don't have that flexibility to put that student in that program because he or she doesn't have the score. What do you say to that person?
Yeah. So as a principal, again, I've been in this game for 30 plus years. And if I had to do it all over again, I think I would have wanted to start as an elementary school principal. And the reason why I say that is because I read once about this principal who met with every single parent in their school district before they started kindergarten. So when they had their kindergarten enrollment, over the summer, they met with every single family and they talked to that family about what are your hopes and dreams for your kids? And then they talked to them about what they needed to do as a family to make sure that that child could reach their hopes and dreams until the child had their hopes and dreams, right? Because 9 times out of 10, and stay with me with this, parents come to school and they're compliant to what we as the educators tell them to do, right? So if I'm telling my student to take algebra in the 8th grade, my student's going to take algebra in the 8th grade. But if the school system is saying, nope, you take algebra in the 9th grade, because that's what the majority of our kids do, then that's what they're going to do. And as a principal, if you see that a test score says one thing about a student, but what you're seeing in their performance every day in your school says something different, then you have an obligation to go to your district and say, I know the test scores say this. I know that these are our rules, but maybe we need to change our rules, right? Because if you don't do that, you're going to get what you've always gotten. And students who are able to perform on these tests, but students who are maybe not perform on the test at the same level, but have the capability of doing just as well in those higher level courses.
I appreciate that. Dr. Goffney, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I know our situations are a little bit different because Dr. King is talking about in district disparities and gaps. And so when we think about the experience that I've had in my career here, serving in the inner city and formerly in a rural districts, is just the access and opportunity that marginalized kids don't have access to. And so I'll get to classes and structures like that in a second. But we have to challenge the beliefs. So if I can take like 30 seconds to set the context for Aldine. We're, like I said, over 90% economically disadvantaged, 100% Title I. And we have nearly 4,000 teachers, and the majority of them drive into Aldine. The majority of our leaders, our principals and APs, they don't live in Aldine. For one, there's no Aldine, Texas. And for two, the makeup of the community doesn't necessarily open itself up to having thriving communities for our teachers to live here. So they're driving in. And so one of the things that I had to do immediately when I first came is challenge the thoughts and beliefs about what was possible for Black, Brown, and students of poverty. So there were things that were being accepted in our schools that they would never accept at their kids' school. And so, and then thinking about even some of the test scores are a manifestation of what we believe kids can do and have access to. And so as we're moving forward, we have to challenge those beliefs on every hand. And if I am very, you talked about those 3 adjectives earlier, I'm unapologetic about demonstrating what's possible for all kids, but specifically Black, Brown, and students of poverty, because those are the students that we serve, and making sure that your limiting belief isn't based on what we see. Like, we get excited about a toy drive. We get excited about a food drive. We get excited about a coat drive, but we're not as excited or on fire because our kids aren't reading in 3rd grade, or on fire and excited about the fact that we got to do something about them graduating college and career ready, or that we didn't have 8th graders who were taking Algebra 1. Meanwhile, in the suburbs and surrounding communities, those kids were having access to Algebra 1 and advanced placement opportunities earlier. And so we had to revamp and rethink how we were doing our GT, gifted and talented. And when you look at the demographics and the fact that on average, 6% of students are identified as gifted, but in our district, only 3% were being identified as gifted. And so we had to think about the system and what we were going to do to change the system. And so while it's different, it's still the same. It's about access and opportunity, and it's about demanding that people who, and I'll never forget one of my first principals meetings. I have some who are on here can attest to it. Literally throwing up the data, asking this, or sharing an experience and asking if it was okay for their kids, because their kids go to school in the suburbs. And if it's not okay for the kids in the suburbs, it's not okay for the kids that we serve. So how do we make sure and create opportunities for all kids? And it's not just all kids in the general sense of our district, but making sure our kids in our district aren't disadvantaged because they're not going to districts that offer different opportunities. And so it's something that we're continuing to push, because you'd be amazed take at what people will accept for other people's kids that they wouldn't accept for their own kids, and make an excuse because of their race, gender, or just economic background or zip code.
Yeah. Wow. Powerful stuff. Powerful stuff. Tell you what, in terms of how we go, let me do one more round, 1-and-1, and then we'll close out, right, with my rapid fire questions, and then we'll close it out. So let me go to where we at here. I'm gonna stay with you, Dr. Goffney, and then I'll close with you, Dr. King. Number 6 is the one I really wanted to hear from. Here we go. You said leadership isn't merely about setting a vision, it's about igniting a fire within others to believe in the vision. It's about cultivating a culture of hope and possibility. I could only fit 200 characters, so I got to read the rest of that sentence. Even in the face of adversity. Right. So again, for the fam out there, the ... even in the face of adversity. It's a powerful statement. What are you telling us, Dr. Goffney?
Literally, exactly. I hope what my any of you who've known me or seen me or experienced me or whatever you want to call it, or even the time that we've had here as I've connected with and been following your work and Dr. King's work and everybody's work, is that for this moment in time, and I know we didn't get political, but we all recognize the different things that we're dealing with. And it's no secret across this country, I believe, that there's an assault on public education as we know it. But many of our stories are only true because of education. We're getting to live the dream, the hopes, dreams, and aspirations of our ancestors because of education. So there's power in education, but that power isn't manifested until we have leadership who can make sure that we stay true to the vision and not get distracted by all of either the naysayers or the negativity or what we don't do or who we don't have or what we can't do, and get focused on what we know to be true. And that is that only through an education are many trajectories ever changed. And so that's why I believe in the power of leadership. That's why I'm thankful for the work that you're doing. That's why I'm thankful for the work that my colleague, Dr. King, is doing and has done, not only in her district, but also through the National Alliance of Black School Educators and other organizations that are focused on advocating for public education. And part of that advocacy is not just with lip service, it's in the work that we do each day to make sure that we're able to move forward. So we have, many of us could look down and turn on the news and feel hopeless, a sense of despair, but I'm still full of hope. Because of those of you who are joining us this morning, because of those who I'm fortunate enough to call colleagues who are on this Zoom, and those in general that I get the good fortune to work with every day. And so I'm hopeful because I know the power of education.
Yeah, that's strong. You know, it reminds me, I got an inbox this morning, like I would say literally about 10 minutes before we were backstage. It was a young lady from Belize. Now, I didn't even know that we were in Belize, right? I know that we're international. You know, people, everybody that's watching is not in the thread. I've learned that over the years. Some people just kind of stay quiet and they watch for whatever the reason. But this one, I never saw her. So she sends me a video this morning, and it said, "I'm in Belize. I watch you on Saturday, and you said." If you're going to be a speaker, you need to also be an author. You need to have a book that goes along with what you speak about. So she wrote a book, and she made this video to show me this book. Now, I haven't posted it yet because I want to find out. I wrote her to ask where people can buy it. But my point is this. I apparently ignited a fire, right? Mm-hmm. Going to what you said, to somebody in another part of the world, so to speak. and they went on and did what I suggested. And I've never met this person. And see, so I felt really good. I watched the video like 3 times before we got on, and I said, man, this is why I do this work, right? This is the reason, to ignite a fire in somebody. Then they get a hold of her book, and then their fire is ignited because of the contents of her book, and it just keeps going and going and going. So I might even ask, just throw it the fam out there that's on the thread, this on the other side of my camera. What is it that you're doing to ignite a fire in every person that breathes air in your building, right? Not just the students, not just your teachers, that entire staff. What is it that you do that's igniting fires in people, that's bringing out of people what they didn't even realize that was in them in the first place? That just matters, man. That matters. So the highlight of my day is that video that young lady wrote, but I'm a highlighter next week, better than I'm doing this week, with her name and the book and all that kind of stuff. But let me go to Dr. King on this last one. Where's that one I wanted you to talk about? Where we at? Here we at. Okay, yeah, I got it. Here we go. You said principals and assistant principals must cultivate meaningful connections with students and communities to foster a positive and empowering school climate. Give it to us.
Yeah, I think establishing trust and open communication channels with your students helps understand their stories and their, challenges and their strengths. And I think that that's part of the role, right? I developed my own, principal advisory committee amongst students, because I had to do it for staff, but I wanted to hear directly from our students. And I was intentional of who I brought to the table, right? Because a lot of times as principals, we always go to the same go-to kids, the ones that are, in your leadership, your athletes. They're the ones that get noticed by school leadership regularly. But I was intentional of making sure that all pockets of my school were represented, and meeting with me once a month to hear about their experiences firsthand. And it's amazing what students will tell you, right? When the water pressure is too hot in the bathroom, because I don't go in the student bathrooms, I don't know that, right? But when you listen to the students, that's it impacting their experience in my school. If you really care, you're going to do something about it. And not only do something about it, but make it happen. And then that builds that level of trust in your students. I think that helps build culture and community in your school of trust. I also think that, partnering with families, I'm going to share this story that the demographics of my school changed drastically my last couple of years as principals. And, again, I shared with you at one point, we were 30, and as far as Black, white, and Hispanic students. By the time I left, we were closer to 50% Hispanic. What I noticed was I was not engaging with their parents at the level that I was with the other two demographics. So, I went to my Hispanic students and I said, tell me where your parents hang out. And they said church, all of them, church. My parents go to church, right? So there was a Catholic church down the street from my school that had a Hispanic mass. And so I went to the father of the white mass because I had a relationship with him. That's where we held our baccalaureate program every year for our seniors. And many of our community members attended that church. And I went to Father Chuck and I said, listen, I need to speak to your Hispanic community. Can you get me a time on the pulpit on Sunday? And he said, yes. So I went to church. I went to the Hispanic. I'm not Catholic, I'm Baptist, and I didn't know how much they got down on their knees and got up. I wasn't prepared for that in that moment. But I sat through a Hispanic mass that was in Spanish. And in that moment, it gave me the opportunity to understand how my Hispanic parents who did not speak English felt when they came to my school.
Yeah.
Because they laughed, I couldn't laugh. They cried, I didn't know why they were crying. The faces and the emotions on them, I didn't understand because I didn't speak the language, right? And so in that moment, I recognized, hey, this is how they feel when they come to Mount Vernon High School. So at the end of the service, he allowed me to go to the mask, and I shared with him through my parent liaison who interpreted what I said. One, I apologized for not recognizing as a school leader what they possibly needed from me. I didn't want to make assumptions, but in that moment, I shared with them how I felt sitting through that mass. And I said to them that I want to start meeting with you, monthly here at the church, because I recognized that there wasn't that trust level between me and them. right? To just say, hey, I need you to come to my school and show up. If this is where you come, I want to come where you are. And I started meeting with them. In my first meeting, there were 10 parents there. And the second meeting, I asked them before we left, can you bring 3 more of your friends next month? And by the time I finished meeting with them for 6 months at the church, there were 126 parents showing up. After those 6 months, I said, look, I need your students to see you in our building. I need you to come to my school, our school. It's our school. And they started coming. And I started a Hispanic PTA that was all in Spanish, that, you know, I spoke through an interpreter, but the meeting was in Spanish. And what it did was so powerful that my Hispanic students were walking down the hall saying, Miss, because that's what they called me, Miss, you know my mother. It made a difference. Their kids started showing up. Their parents started engaging in other areas of the school because they had a trusted relationship with the principal. Not a teacher that was, you know, that they had in their classroom, not their assistant principal that they had to deal with most times because of discipline, but with their principal. We ate because they said, you got to feed us and you got to give us childcare. And I did both of those, and they showed up consistently to where we started programs that would help them be what they called, they want to be better parents in the American school system, but they have to understand it before they could be better parents. And wow, that was probably the most proudest thing I did in my 9 years as principal, because I recognized that those students were hurting for the attention that the other students automatically got. And by me engaging with their parents, made them feel like, you know, equal students in my building.
That's right. That's right. I got my own story about the same thing, but that's for another time. But yeah, I certainly can relate to it. It resonates with me. Let's go to those rapid fires. Let me just clear my screen right quick. And here we go. Let's go to these rapid fires. So the way this works, if you don't know, it's 21 questions. We go 10, and then the last question I give to both of you. And it's no commas, right? It's just one sentence or even one word, 2 words, whatever it is, but it's rapid fire. If you're getting ready to add a comma too long, I might say, right? So cut it off, right? So here we go. We start with Dr. Goffney. Is education on the right path for underserved children?
Yes.
Can true equity occur in America's schools for Black, brown, and other underserved students?
Yes.
Does Dr. LaTonya Goffney's work contribute to the progress we desperately need?
Yes.
If you could do a reset on your life, would your line of work be different or the same?
The same.
Why do you continue to do the work that you do?
The love of kids.
What fires you up within the work that you do?
Amazing leaders.
What do you dislike about the work that you do?
Terrible leaders.
What has been your greatest victory in this work thus far?
Demonstrating what's possible for Black, brown, and students of poverty. And we want to scale it, but we've done it.
What has been your greatest mistake in the work that you do thus far?
Greatest mistake? Not hiring when I had not hiring well.
And lastly, what has been your greatest challenge in your work?
The politics.
The politics. Dr. King, are you proud of your first year as an assistant principal?
Yes.
Are you proud of your first year as a principal?
Yes.
Who inspires you in your work?
Dr. Clanthea Tucker.
What book do you recommend for our fam out there this afternoon?
Wow. Your book. That's right.
Now let me find my place. What do you want to accomplish that you haven't accomplished yet?
Superintendency.
Are you satisfied with where you are professionally?
No.
Is there another gear to your leadership, or are you at peak performance now?
There's another 10 years.
What would you say to an AP out there who continues to face closed doors to the principalship?
Don't stop.
What would you say to a leader out there who's lost their leadership passion?
Leave the profession.
What would you say to a leader out there who's lost their leadership confidence?
Find you a good mentor.
If Dr. Nardos King was a word in a dictionary, what would be your definition?
Courage.
If Dr. LaTonya Goffney was a word in a dictionary, what would be your definition?
Role model. Oh, I thought I was supposed to. Is that her or me?
I switched over. Over. I gave it the last one too. I like that though. I like that.
I love it. I love it.
What's yours, Dr. Goffney?
A unifier. Mm-hmm.
Unifier.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings us to the end, folks. I want to be the first to applaud you. This was as powerful as I anticipated it would be. In fact, it exceeded expectation. I've been looking forward to this ever since the two of you said yes. And I kind of don't want to say what I'm getting ready to say, and I kind of do want to say what I'm getting ready to say. So I'm just going to roll the dice and say it. It was supposed to be three of us. Dr. Kimberly McLeod was our other, and I'm not going to obviously say anything here. Just you all out there that know Dr. McLeod, I've been knowing her for a long time. Just prayers up to her, right? I'm gonna just leave it there. And I it's my hope, my dream that I can get the three of you on here together. For those that don't know, Dr. Kimberly McLeod is the president-elect of the National Alliance of Black School Educators. So, so for me, I was so excited that, man, I got the immediate past president, I got the current president, and I got the president-elect, and they're all Black women, and I got them on one platform, right? So I'm not going to get into anything, but just prayers up to Dr. McLeod for sure. And I believe, I have to believe that I'm gonna have the three of you on this platform together in the near future, and we gonna make that happen, right? So with that said, everybody, give us those emojis. The fam already knows. I know you started already. This is the way. For those of you who are not fam yet, hopefully this is not your last time. But the way we applaud our guests is we put our favorite emojis on the screen. Give us a lot of them. And so I say to every week for the past 256, now 57 weeks, if today's session resonated with you, if it got you thinking, if it was good stuff, if it was useful, if you could take some of what you heard and incorporate it into your leadership, give us your favorite emojis. That's the way we applaud my two guests. And I have my emoji here, which is a real life emoji. It's a bat. And, I'm always rocking my Negro League jerseys. I bet you some of y'all was like, what is that he's wearing, man? This is the Jacksonville, Florida Red Caps. And it's a Negro League team. I got almost 100 jerseys upstairs.
Wow.
That's all I wear on this platform. These are authentic. They are flannel. So we turn on no heat when I do these Saturdays because these are the heater, right? So they're very hot. They're very warm. And this is what they wore back in them days. So y'all went to the plate, hit it out the park, grand slam. Every time you went to bat, it was powerful, and you're much appreciated. I know the two of you are full-timers, but I also see a lot of pictures of you with microphones in your hands on social media. So tell the people how they can reach out to you to bring you to do a seminar or a keynote or a talk, whatever it is. I'll start with Dr. Goffney. How do the people reach you or just want to follow you on social media?
Well, still on X. So I'm Dr. Goffney on X. Facebook is for family, but definitely have shared this, and some of my family joined this morning, so thank you. And then I'm wondering about Blue Sky. So I'm on Blue Sky. Are you on there? Good. So I'll go find you. So let's get on Blue Sky and see what's happening over there. And of course, LinkedIn, I'm just learning a little bit. So the best way, inbox me on X still. I'm thinking about what's next as far as that. I know some people are not on X anymore, so that's where you can find me.
I lost about 50,000 followers on X, so it's a lot of people going. I'm down to 86,000.
People are leaving, and so I'm trying to leave as well. that's where we use our branding for our district, though, with our hashtag. So we gotta think about how we can do that strategically. So any ideas you have, please share with us.
Yeah, definitely. And I stream to it on Saturdays, and that's the only reason I'm still on it, because because a couple thousand people watch on X on Saturdays. So that's why I'm there. Dr. King, how do they reach you so you can come on out there and give that information?
So I am not on X, and I'm not going back to X.
Don't make me feel bad now.
But my
guilty.
only public social media page is LinkedIn. Because my Facebook page is for family and friends, and you can Google me on the web and find me. Everybody else does. People who I don't want find me. So if you really want me, you should be able to find me.
I know that's right, man. I know that's right. They find us. They find us. Yeah. So listen, I appreciate y'all. Y'all see how to reach out to them. So do so. Maybe that back to school convocation, if they could fit that in, or maybe just that PD day if they can break away. Maybe that weekend conference you got in the district, whatever it is. Reach out to them. Let me close out. Could the two of you stay on for me when I go off, so we could just holler off mic for a hot second? I know you're gonna watch some college b-ball today, right? So I ain't gonna hold you up. Hey, to the fam out there and to the newbies, to the first timers, I appreciate you being here for week 257. And again, that's consecutive. I've been doing this for 257 weeks without a break. This is what I do. So with my busy schedule, for those that don't know me, I'm on the road. I live on the road. I live out of a suitcase. I'm getting ready to go. I'm doing a keynote in Philadelphia tomorrow on a Sunday to 700 school leaders. That's not normally what I do on a Sunday, but I'll be 11 o'clock. I'll be on a platform talking to 700 Philly folks. Looking forward to it. And then I'm going to Baltimore for 2 days, and then LA. It's just whirlwind, but I prayed for it, so I'm not complaining. But that's what it is. But then throughout that, for 3 days, I'm planning this. Right. So I added this to my already very busy and tight schedule. But I'm glad you're here. Next week, join me again. I got 2 guests for week 258, educator, author Shauna King, and then a local former principal. Now he heads the charter school division. My man, he's got a book over here too. His name is Jamar Mills, right? So this is his new joint, Dr. Jamar Mills, turnaround principal out of Shabazz High School in Newark, New Jersey. So we're going to have a dynamite talk next week. So make sure that you tune in next week. Every Saturday, Facebook Live, 10 o'clock, Sean Hurt, followed by Create and Educate with the good doctors, Sheikah Houston and Tammy Taylor. And then myself at 10:55, and then Sunday PDP podcast, Josh Tovar, my brother, and Dr. Madi Moreno. We finally met in person the other day. That's Sunday, 7 o'clock. The new one, make sure you get yourself a copy. What is my value instructionally to the teachers I supervise? I've written 14 books, but this is by far the best and the most important book that I've ever written. Get yourself a copy. Go to Amazon right now. Get it out the way. Go to ASCD, whatever it is. It's an ASCD member book too, so I know like 5,000 or 6,000 got a free copy of the book as well. So get yourself a copy. School Leadership Institute with Principal Kafele, July 15 and 16 in Raleigh, North Carolina. Come on down and join me. We're going to have a grand old time. So come on down and join me. Go to principalkafele.com, scroll down to the Leadership Institute, click the link, and then register, and I'll see you there. And as I said, you get a free copy of this with your registration. Subscribe to the AP and New Principals Academy YouTube channel. We're at 23,400. Let's get it up to 24,000. So subscribe to that. Hit the subscribe button, but also hit the notification bell. That way you're informed when I go live, because you might be in the things and forget that I'm on every Saturday at 10:55. So make sure you hit both buttons. And then lastly, I know there was something that's not in my notes. Hang on with me for a second. It's in my other notes, right? So where are we at? Where are them other notes? Here they go. Here they go. Here they go. We good. We good. We good. To the Philly folks, I see you tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock. If you on, I'll be there, man. I'm bringing fire and flames with me, so I'm going to be ready. And then I'm going to make that drive to Baltimore. Hey, y'all, make sure that you're eating right. Make sure that you're exercising right. and make sure you're taking precautions with all these viruses out here. I heard that the virus with the chief of viruses with the CDC, he resigned last night, right? He said he was sick of the lies. I'm gonna leave it there because I ain't getting political on here, not this late in the game, right? But the chief vaccination person, he quit last night. Oh man, pray for America, baby, because there's so much stuff going on. But other than that, y'all, I appreciate you. Have a great week. Have an extraordinary week. Have your best week yet. Peace. Peace. Thumbs up. Now take that fist and cock it back all the way. Count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Bam! I see y'all next Saturday.